Welcome, travelers, to my realm of nightmares. Allow me to be your personal assistant. Come in, take a seat, get comfortable. For when you step into my realm, there's no stepping out.
Sitting on the couch, Mr. and Mrs. Jackson sipped their morning coffee. The morning was cold. They had just had a pretty decent snowstorm, and Mr. Jackson had to go out and shovel the driveway. But before that, they had watched the morning news to see what the weather report would be like for the rest of the week. It was almost Christmas, and he had to ensure the weather did not have any intention on canceling the holiday plans. The weatherman came on TV. "Alright, folks, the weather is looking all clear for the rest of the week. We will have a nice white Christmas, so get the mittens and sleds out, go make a snowman, or even have a snowball fight, and enjoy the holiday season. And of course, a very Merry Christmas to you and yours." Right after the weather segment of the news ended, it flipped over to an anchor. They both wore somber expressions on their face. The news anchor started to speak. "We want to remind you to lock your windows and doors. The Christmas Eve killer is still on the loose. This year marks the 6th year the cops have been on the lookout for this person. If anyone sees anything out of the ordinary, inform your local police department." Mr. and Mrs. Jackson looked at one another, and the concern was clear on their faces. "We need to take extra care and ensure that the house is locked and the kids are safe," Miss Jackson said to Mr. Jackson. Mr. Jackson, kissing his wife's forehead, said, "Oh, honey, I love you, but you worry too much. The odds of the so-called Christmas Eve killer coming to our little town is so slim, you need not worry, okay? I am going to go shovel now. The sooner I start, the sooner I get done." Walking out the door, he made his way to the shed. Unlocking it, he grabs the shovel and makes his way to the driveway. It was not large, but they had gotten a foot of snow last night, so it would take him a little time to finish. Taking a deep breath, he always loved the snow and the cold. It was enjoyable for him. He was born the day after Christmas, so when it got cold, he felt at home. Getting to work, he started at the top of the driveway and worked his way down. He noticed most of his neighbors would start from the bottom and work their way up. But one year, he tried that, and at the time he was finished with the bottom section of the driveway, a fucking plow truck just blocked it off. So from then on, he just shoveled from top to bottom. After hours of hard work, he finally came to the bottom of the driveway and finished up. Just as he was finishing, he noticed something sitting on the top of his mailbox. And since he had to shovel that out as well, he might as well go check it out. Getting to the mailbox, he noticed it was one of them Elf on a Shelf that everyone is always going on about. He smiles, knowing his daughter would love this, but his son would be horrified by the thing. So, he took the elf and placed it in his pocket, proceeded to shove out the mailbox as planned. Finishing his task, he noticed that it had become early afternoon by the placement of the sun in the sky. Walking back inside, he placed a kiss on his wife's cheek. "Hey honey, look what I found out in the mailbox." He pulled out the elf doll he found with an evil smile on his face, and his wife looked at him. "Throw that thing away. You know Jay's scared of elves," she sternly told him. "Ah, come on, honey. It's just a little fun, and Helly would love it. We just have a few days until Christmas Eve, and it'll be fun for her." She conceded and let him keep the thing, with the caveat he was to keep it away from Jay. Mr. Jackson took the elf and placed it on the shelf in the next room. He intended on showing his daughter after lunch. His wife finished preparing lunch, and he called his children down. However, as his daughter came running to the kitchen past the elf, it fell at her feet. Ellie squealed in delight as she picked the thing up. Her brother screamed in fear and ran to the kitchen, using Mr. Jackson as a shield from the thing. Ellie ran over to her brother, torturing him with that damned elf. Miss Jackson sees this and strides over to her daughter and ripped it from her weak grasp. Miss Jackson places it on top of the refrigerator, and the family proceeds to have lunch. The conversation at the table was sparse for the first half of the meal, but as tempers calmed and more level heads prevailed, Mr. Jackson suggested they all go outside and enjoy the day. Miss Jackson liked the idea of getting the kids out of the house and hoped that the kids would forget all about that creepy-ass elf. She didn't want to admit it to her husband, but the thing gave her the creeps. Finishing up their lunch, they all got ready to go out and have a family fun day in the snow. Getting outside, the kids immediately started a snowball fight. Together, they quickly forgot about their earlier squabble. As Mr. and Mrs. Jackson watched the kids, they smiled. This was one of the best things about being a parent, seeing the joy in your kid's face. There was honestly no better feeling. Mr. Jackson got bored after a while, and he made a snowball and threw it at his son's head. Jay spun around and looked at his dad. He had a smile on his face as he stood behind Jay's mother. Mr. Jackson was pointing his finger at his wife and a gesture saying it was her. Jay's smile widened and shouts, "Oh yeah, Mom? Take this!" As he threw the freshly made snowball at his mother, hitting her in the face. An all-out snowball war started and lasted for hours. Realizing the sun was beginning to sink low and that it was growing late, they all went back inside. Heading to the kitchen, Miss Jackson started to make dinner, while Mr. Jackson sat on the couch watching some TV. As he sat there, he drifted off into sleep. The next thing he knew, he heard a blood-curdling scream coming from his son's room. Jumping up off the sofa, he ran to his son's room and shouted, "What's wrong, Jay?" His son looked up at him with tears in his eyes. "The elf moved himself into my room all on his own." Mr. Jackson looked at his son as he tried to explain. "Buddy, the elves can't move on its own. Come on now, son. Someone had to move the elf in here, into your room. I'm pretty sure I know who it was, as well." Mr. Jackson gets up and walks out of his son's room, making sure to take the elf with him. Marching over to his daughter's room, he opens the door, throwing the elf onto his daughter's bed and shouts, "What the hell do you think you're doing, Ellie? This is not okay, and it's not funny. You scared the hell out of your little brother with your little trick." His daughter looked at him. She was on the brink of tears when she spoke. "Daddy, I didn't put that in Jay's room. Last time I saw it was when Mom put it on top of the refrigerator. I didn't do it, Daddy, I swear." Her dad watched her, and while he thought she was lying, she was now crying. He hugged her and said, "It's okay, just don't do it again, okay? Your brother is scared of elves, and you know this. So please, don't torment your brother with this thing, or I'll throw it out, okay, sweetie? I love you. Please, be good. I will not tell your mother about it this time, but if it happens again, you will be in trouble." Mr. Jackson walks out of his daughter's room and heads back to the living room. Sitting back down on the sofa, he turned the TV back on and continued to watch TV. Shortly after, his wife called him and the kids in for dinner. Mr. Jackson could hear both the kids come running down the stairs. First to get to the table was Ellie. She seemed to be worried that her mom was going to scold her, but her father just gave her a playful wink and she relaxed a bit. A few minutes later, Jay came into the kitchen. You could tell he was noticeably nervous, looking around the kitchen like something was going to jump out at him. Miss Jackson noticed this and asked if he was alright. "Yeah, I'm fine, Mom. I'm just not feeling the best is all," Jay tells his mother. His mom comes over and puts her hand on his forehead. "Oh, well, you do feel a bit feverish, and you seem a bit pale. You should go to bed early. A good night's rest will do you wonders." Jay smiles weakly at his mom. "Yeah, Mom, I will do that. Can we eat now? This looks amazing." Miss Jackson puts all the food on the table and sits down. They take turns passing the food around the table. They had pot roast, mashed potatoes, green beans, fresh baked bread. As they enjoyed the food, they reflected on the day and how much fun it was. Family days like this were few and far in between, which just made them all the more special. Finishing up dinner, the kids got ready for bed, as Mr. and Miss Jackson washed the dishes and cleaned up from dinner. The kids went and got ready for bed, and once all the chores were finished, Mr. and Miss Jackson went to tuck them in. "Good night, kids." They gave them a kiss on their forehead as they left the room, shutting off the lights and shutting the door. The kids fell asleep quickly, but Ellie ended up waking up in the middle of the night. She had to use the bathroom and needed a drink of water. Ellie gets up and walks down the stairs to get a glass of water. She walked over to the cabinet where they kept the cups. Since she was still just a little too short to reach them, but she did not want to wake her parents, she stood on her tippy toes, finally managing to open the cabinet. However, in the process, she knocked over the container her parents used to keep the sugar in. It fell from the counter and hit the floor. The container broke, spilling its contents all over the floor. The house was dead quiet, and she was expecting her parents to come running down the stairs, but she heard nothing. So she went to the closet to get a broom and dustpan. However, upon returning to the kitchen, she sees a small figure looming over the broken sugar container. Ellie turns on the lights and screams. The elf on the shelf was knelt down over the spilled sugar, slowly counting each grain of sugar. After Ellie was finished screaming, her parents could be heard running down the stairs. They got to the kitchen and asked her what was wrong. Ellie points to the elf, screaming, "It's alive!" She pointed at the elf, laying on the ground motionless. Miss Jackson bends down and takes her daughter's hand. "Honey, the elf is not alive. You probably knocked it off the counter when you spilled the sugar. And when you came back to clean it up, saw it on the floor and thought it was alive. It's just a trick of your mind," Miss Jackson explained to her daughter. Mr. Jackson said, "Let's get this mess cleaned up and get back to bed." In the back of his mind, he wondered how the elf got down here when he left it in his daughter's room. But he figured she must have just brought it down with her and forgot. So after he and Ellie finished cleaning up the broken glass and sugar, they went to bed. After tucking his daughter in, he told her she would not have to worry about the elf anymore. He would throw it out tomorrow after he got up. Placing a kiss on her head, Mr. Jackson said, "I love you, honey. Sleep well." And with that, he closed the door and took the elf to the bedroom with him. Throwing the elf in the corner of the room, he gets in bed with his wife. Mr. Jackson said, "Well, you were right, honey. Bringing this damned elf into this house was a bad idea. After we get up tomorrow, it's getting thrown out." Rolling over, he drifted off to sleep. Mr. Jackson hears a strange sound right before he enters his deep sleep. He rolls over groggily, nudging his wife. "Hey, do you hear that?" Mr. Jackson asked. His wife gave no response, so he shook her harder. Her limp body rolls over, and her throat was ripped out. Mr. Jackson screamed, and the elf jumped up on him. The elf had grown. He was much larger than he was before. He was roughly the size of a large house cat now. The elf spoke for the first and last time that Mr. Jackson would hear. "You invited me into your home, and now I'm going to claim my prize. Your souls will be ours, and you feed my family for the foreseeable future." The elf pulls out a jar and rips out his throat, much like the elf had done to his wife. As the life faded from Mr. Jackson, he saw the glowing aura of his soul being sealed into the jar. The children woke up the next morning. They opened their parents' door and ran into their parents' room and were greeted with the sight of their mangled corpses. In the middle of screaming, they saw the elf on the shelf covered in blood. It looked up at them. "I have what I came for, and I'll be leaving now." It ran down the stairs and out the doggy door. Jay called the cops and said that the elf on the shelf killed their parents. Upon getting to the house, the cops went to the parents' room. They looked at one another and spoke. "Looks like the Christmas Eve killer struck again, but I don't understand why the kids always say that the fucking elf on the shelf did it, though." Tonight's story was titled The Christmas Elf, and was written and narrated by myself. If you enjoyed this, chances are you'll enjoy the content on Dark Little Voices channel, as they are amazing narrators and I really do believe you'll enjoy their content. Their links will be in the description below. Hey, did you know I have merch? Yeah, it's crazy, right? But I do. And if you like to walk around representing my realm and gaining new travelers, the links to my merch store as well as all my other social medias will be in the description below. As always, I want to say a special thank you to all my lovely Patreons. 242 Reads, Rando Calrissian, Pam, Seraphine the Midnight Bard, Creepy Clown Girl, Mia Mina, Philia Noctis, Hair Raising Narratives, Spooky Boo Scary Storytime, Breaker 19, and Nathaniel Nelson. If you'd like to join these lovely travelers about to light my fire, you can do so by becoming a Patreon as well. Just remember, the support is always appreciated but never expected. Please, don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, and ding that bell if you're new for all future content, as it will really help the channel grow and push this video out into the algorithm.
But as always, travelers, once you step into my realm, there's no stepping